A young woman suddenly realizes that the world is being controlled by alien beings. Sarah sits by the river, listening to a soothing voice urging her to relax and reflect on the ever-changing nature of the universe. But suddenly, it turns out this peaceful scene is only part of a guided meditation, one she's actually listening to in her car, not by the river. After a short break, Sarah returns to her job she can't stand. She goes door to door trying to sell solar panels, but no one seems interested in talking to a pushy salesperson. She overhears homeowners whispering that she's probably a Jehovah's Witness and then going quiet, hoping she'll just leave. Later, Sarah meets with her therapist, complaining about her life and the world's endless problems. He reminds her that she can't, and shouldn't, try to control everything, advising her to stop obsessing over things she can't change. The sarcastic, pessimistic Sarah snaps back that even if she stops worrying, her existential fears won't magically disappear. She keeps going with her gloomy monologue, wondering how anyone can decide to have kids in a world like this. She muses about how short life is and says she's not afraid of dying. In her opinion, it's better to go quickly and unexpectedly than to spend years suffering and overthinking everything. Her therapist urges Sarah to focus more on real, tangible things and to connect with people more. Then he abruptly ends the session. Time's up. Sarah suddenly realizes she's been seeing him for 2 years, spent a small fortune, and still doesn't feel any better. The therapist assures her that real progress takes time before saying goodbye again, leaving Sarah confused and frustrated. After that, Sarah heads to the stadium to get some exercise, where she meets up with her only friend, Kayla. Kayla reminds her that she set her up on a date for Friday with Tucker, her brother's friend. When Sarah complains, Kayla insists she seriously needs to get out and have some fun. Not wanting to upset Kayla, Sarah reluctantly agrees to meet the guy, though she's pretty sure nothing will come of it.
Yay! Trust me, you'll have a great time.
On her way home, Sarah runs into her landlord, Barry, who reminds her that the rent is due, making her mood sink even lower. That evening, she stares at the bottles of antidepressants and other pills lined up on her shelf, fighting the urge to take them all and make her problems disappear once and for all. That night, she barely sleeps, tossing and turning with endless anxious thoughts. In the morning, Sarah wakes to the sound of her alarm and starts yet another joyless day. After another round of failed attempts to sell solar panels, she comes home completely drained. Just then, her much more upbeat mother calls, asking how work is going. Her mom insists that things will get better soon and suggests she look for a more respectable job in her field. But Sarah insists that she's fine with part-time work for now. Her mother then asks about her weekend plans, and Sarah mentions the date she doesn't want to go on. Her mom wishes her luck and advises her to dress up, but Sarah says she wants to just be herself and plans to go in casual clothes. The next evening, she heads to a bar, where Tucker is already waiting. The guy's arrogant attitude rubs her the wrong way immediately, though she pretends everything's fine. Tucker offers her a drink, but Sarah declines, saying she hasn't had alcohol for a while. All evening, the self-absorbed Tucker brags about his job, while Sarah sits there silently, clearly bored. Then, out of nowhere, he suggests they go back to his place for the night. She politely refuses, and Tucker smugly says she owes him for the expensive dinner. His audacity infuriates Sarah. She tells him he's the perfect example of everything she hates about people, and the modern world in general, and that she'd never go out with someone like him again. Tucker, genuinely shocked, can't understand why a regular girl like her isn't throwing herself at him.
Whew. Cuckoo.
That night, a disappointed Sarah returns home. In the bathroom, she stares at the pills again, even carrying all the bottles into her room to make a final decision. She still doesn't have the courage to leave the world behind, but she takes one pill, hoping it might make her feel better. Suddenly, the screen of her turned-off TV flickers to life. A host of a comedy talk show greets the viewers, and unexpectedly brings up the idea of reality being a simulation. His colleague, or rather, the same host in a different persona, explains that an advanced civilization once used computer technology to create simulations populated by entire generations of people who believed their world was real. The man goes on to say that this is how the higher race examines its own past, exploring how different variables might have shaped their development, a way to study alternative histories of the world. Then the host addresses the viewers directly, claiming that the world around them, and even their own existence, is just one of billions of reality simulations created by future humans. Seeing how unbelievable this sounds, he decides to prove it. Looking straight into the camera, he says that Sarah is currently holding a banana in her hand. Sarah laughs, and then, in the very next second, realizes he's telling the truth.
Holy fucking what?
Suddenly, the host announces that all good things must come to an end, and in just a week, the simulation will be shut down. By the rules, all sentient beings must be made aware of the nature of their existence before the simulation ends. That's why he's delivering this message. But it's not all bad. The same host, now in a new persona, offers people a choice. They can stay in the abandoned simulation with no interference from a higher race, or they can move to a simpler, more efficient system and relive their 5 best memories, without knowing anything about the origin of this new world. Additionally, everyone will get a personal guide who will answer all their questions before transitioning to any of the offered options. The host says goodbye, leaving Sarah completely bewildered. Suddenly, there's a knock at the door. It's the guide. He looks just like the host, but in reality, he's an AI program tailored to each individual. The guide wants to help Sarah come to terms with the ending process, but Sarah insists she can handle it on her own and asks to be left alone. The guide, however, says he must stay with her until a decision is made. Sarah wonders if the world will descend into chaos. After all, the population has doubled, thanks to the personal guides, but the guide reassures her that each person only sees their own assistant, and that the advanced race has handled this before. His program has been used over 100 billion times. Shaken, Sarah decides to fall asleep quickly, hoping it's all just a dream, but the guide says he'll wait, and tomorrow they'll continue their conversation. A few days later, Sarah visits her psychologist again. She admits that realizing she, and no one else, had control over her life actually brings her some relief. Her psychotherapist, on the other hand, struggles to accept that his entire existence and carefully built life were a lie and will soon vanish. Like the vast majority of people, he chooses the second option, moving into the new system to carefree relive the best moments of life. Sarah, however, still hasn't made up her mind. The psychotherapist continues to grumble about life's unfairness, then admits he regrets the time he spent on failures like Sarah. He brusquely kicks her out, but unexpectedly, cheerful Sarah seems unfazed.
Leave a check!
Later, Sarah heads to a cafe with the guide. She asks if many people choose to stay in the unmanaged simulation. The guide admits it's just a handful, people who almost never encounter others, and Sarah finds the idea appealing. Then she asks what she chose in the alternative simulations. The guide refuses to answer, worried it might influence her decision. Suddenly, Sarah gets a message from Kayla. She wants to meet in the park. With the guide, Sarah heads there. The shocking news has clearly shaken Kayla, and she's joined a mysterious cult that worships the creators of their world. Spiritually inspired, Kayla introduces Sarah to her new friend, but Sarah doesn't share their strange fascination. Back home, Sarah can't stop thinking about Kayla's reaction, but her guide reassures her that this is always how it goes. Sarah is convinced the world would be much better without people like that. The guide reminds her that humans need each other and that living entirely alone won't be easy, but Sarah insists she'd actually be better off that way. Noticing missed calls, Sarah calls her mother back, and she invites her to lunch. With the guide, Sarah visits her parents, who, like everyone else, want to move to the new world. However, Sarah makes it clear, she wants to stay.
Really?
Sarah's father doesn't believe she can survive in a world without support or help. Hurt, Sarah storms into the yard to be alone. Her father apologizes for being harsh and assures her that he only wants what's best for her. But Sarah explains that, right now, she feels better than ever and believes that without people around, she can start a new life on her own terms. Then her father suggests that Sarah ask her guide why the end of the world is happening now. What went wrong in this simulation that it's set to be destroyed? He thinks understanding this might help her make the right choice. After a while, Sarah says goodbye to her parents and tells them she'll visit again before everything ends. But her parents insist this will be their last meeting. They've dreamed of spending their anniversary in Fiji and are leaving tomorrow. Sarah feels happy for them but can barely hold back tears, realizing she may never see them again. Back in the car, she meets her guide again and asks why their simulation is being shut down. The guide explains that it has fulfilled its purpose and the resources are being reallocated to other simulations. He reminds Sarah that each simulation is designed to test the effect of a specific variable on the world. This time, it's the flightless great auk, a penguin-like bird that humans completely wiped out in the mid-19th century. Sarah doesn't understand why their world is ending only now. The guide explains that they want to see the impact of the variable, or the consequences of its absence. Horrified, Sarah realizes that humans are to blame for the end of their world. If the great auks hadn't gone extinct, their world would have continued. Suddenly, Sarah kicks the guide out of the car. He warns her that he'll keep watching and will know if she changes her mind. Sarah returns home, but despair and hopelessness overwhelm her, pushing her into a full-blown panic. Suddenly, her landlord Barry interrupts and invites her to a big end of the world party. Sarah thinks it's strange, but Barry is convinced it will help her come to terms with the inevitable. That evening, Sarah is hit by a panic attack, and the next morning she decides to call her mother. Reaching the answering machine, she admits that she misses them and wishes she could spend her last days together with her family. Later, she tries to relax by drinking and wrecking everything around her. During the day, she calls Kayla and invites her to the party. Sarah admits she's feeling lonely and desperately wants Kayla to come, but once again, she only reaches the answering machine. Dressed in a fancy outfit, Sarah heads to the last party alone. She runs into Tucker again, who once more suggests spending the night together. Sarah reminds him how their first date ended and storms out into the yard in anger. There, she notices Kayla, but her friend is even more lost in her own world and seems oblivious to everything around her. For the rest of the evening, Sarah keeps to herself, drinking alone. Then Barry announces that there's only 1 minute left before the simulation shuts down. Sarah joins the wild crowd, and then the entire world goes dark. 2 years pass. Sarah shares her thoughts again, but now not with a therapist, just with herself in an abandoned office. She still believes that the shutdown of the simulation allowed her to relax and truly feel alive. Sarah rides through the empty city with a sense of freedom, collects water from the river, eats apples, and reads by candlelight. One day, during one of these outings, she unexpectedly runs into Tucker. The encounter shocks them both. They haven't seen anyone in 2 years. Sarah expected him to leave with the others, but he surprises her with a wise thought. It's better to live in the present than repeat the past. Tucker suggests they stick together so they won't feel so lonely, but Sarah insists she's happy living alone. Still, Tucker doesn't give up and says he'll find her tomorrow morning. Sarah doesn't respond, pretending she didn't hear him. Back home, she finally lets herself unwind. It seemed that the unexpected encounter had stirred up Sarah's anxiety again and worsened her mood. The next morning, Tucker, as promised, waits for Sarah on his bike outside her house. She isn't exactly thrilled about the company, but she agrees to ride along. After a while, they stop by a stream so Sarah can fill up her water. She's still hostile toward Tucker, and he's surprised that, after all this time, she can't forgive him for that disastrous first date. Sarah tells him that he represents all the flaws of their already broken world, and she doesn't want to be reminded of her past, unhappy life. But Tucker insists, he's changed too and has come to understand his past behavior. And that terrible personality of his? It was just a mask hiding his insecurities. He urges Sarah to reconsider how she sees him and to acknowledge her own mistakes, just as he has. But she walks away in silence. Tucker rushes after her, begging her to listen. His persistence starts to anger Sarah. When he grabs the water jug to help, she shoves him sharply. Tucker trips over a rock and falls into a ravine, hitting the ground hard. Sarah is tormented by unbearable guilt, and all traces of her former cheerfulness are gone. One day, there's a knock at the door. Fearful, Sarah grabs a kitchen knife, ready to confront an uninvited guest, but it's her guide standing there. Overwhelmed, Sarah hugs him, unable to hold back her emotions. The guide explains that only about 250,000 people remain in the shutdown simulation, and they're keeping an eye on these brave survivors. Sarah admits she didn't expect to feel so strongly about Tucker. The guide explains that people, both in the real world and in the simulation, are programmed to care for one another. And even though Sarah had grown used to thinking otherwise, people need people. She tells him that for 2 years she lived happily in solitude, but somehow Tucker's death made her suffer. The guide reveals that Tucker has now reunited with the others and asks if Sarah still wants to remain in this world. Sarah declares she has made her choice and will live with him until the end, but the guide offers to send her to join the others at any moment. For a moment, Sarah ponders his offer. The guide adds that the remaining people will eventually transition to another system. They're simply allowing each to make that decision in their own time. He lets his emotions show, marveling at how she ever thought she could survive completely alone. But he encourages her. She managed to last 2 whole years, something few could achieve. Sarah admits that deep down, she had always judged those who chose to leave life voluntarily, thinking it too easy. That's why she decided to stay in the simulation. But now she has proven everything to herself that she wanted to. She says she's finally ready to make the transition, but asks for the rest of the day to fully come to terms with it. The guide promises to come for her tomorrow morning, and then, unexpectedly, answers a question she asked him 2 years ago. Had he ever met other, alternate versions of Sarah? He admits he's met over 300 versions of Sarah, all slightly different, and not all chose to stay. Of those who did, only the main Sarah lasted this long. She is the strongest, bravest, and the only one he revealed the full truth to. Out of all the Sarahs, she went the farthest. She succeeded. Sarah hugs the guide, and they say goodbye until tomorrow. Then, for the last time, she heads to the river and says farewell to the life she once knew. If you were in the hero's shoes, what would you choose? Surviving alone in an empty world, or being stuck in the same cycle over and over? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video.